Hey guys, today I've got another review for you. This one's like a super long-term review, at least for me, because I switch phones pretty often, but I've got the Pixel 6 Pro. I got this for $120 on Facebook Marketplace, which was an insane deal. Couldn't pass it up. But if you're gonna get it somewhere like Amazon, you can get it pretty much brand new. It'll be renewed, but renewed excellent condition for around $250. I'll have a link below if you're interested in getting one. But yeah, I've had this phone for about 6 months. In the box, it came with a USB-C to USB-C cable, and then it also came with a little USB-A to USB-C adapter, so you can easily plug this phone into your previous phone and transfer it. Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about the hardware. So this phone has aluminum rails, and it's got a little metal camera bump here, and then on top of the camera there's a glass sheet. Obviously you got to be able to shoot through it, a glass back, and then a glass front. Overall, the hardware on this is super premium. Google came out hard after the Pixel 5s because they wanted to make a splash, so they made these phones feel very premium. In terms of the chip inside, it has Google's first, I've got a double tap to turn on the flash, but in terms of the internals, Google has the Tensor chip, their first generation, inside of this phone, which is pretty powerful, but as you probably have heard, it gets relatively hot and kind of chokes down on battery life. My version has 256 gigabytes of storage, though there's a 128 gig version and a 512 version. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM. That's the same through all of the versions. It's got an under-screen fingerprint reader that's relatively quick. It's not the ultrasonic ones though, so it's a little slower. And if you're reading at night or something and your phone locks, it's super bright because it illuminates the bottom of your finger. It's got really good haptics, something that most Pixel phones have. And it's got an IP68 waterproof rating, so if you want to dive into a pool or something, you can, though I still wouldn't. That's about it for the hardware. Let's talk a little bit about the software, which is really the selling point of most Pixels. As everyone knows, the Pixel phones are made by Google, who also makes Android, so they get the latest and greatest in terms of Android software before any other company gets it. And then Google builds a lot of stuff on top of that. For some people, what Google builds isn't that important, and they're diving a lot more into AI. So in the future, there may be some privacy concerns, but that remains to be seen. And honestly, there's probably already privacy concerns even before the AI. So, if you like using their AI, Gemini, then I'd say why not? But my favorite things about the software, other than that it's really reactive and quick and there's not a lot of stuff on top of it, is that you get call screening and hold for me. So let's say I need to call T-Mobile because they raised my phone bill by $5 after they promised that they wouldn't. This is really nice because it will hold for you and it'll send you text messages and live transcriptions of what the agent is saying, so you can see right away, essentially, if you're needed on the line. But the call screening, I think, is actually more, I prefer that more because I use it more often. I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of spam calls, and when I have a Pixel, I just don't see them. Every once in a while, I'll see the notification come down and it'll say screening call, and then that person never makes it through because they're trying to sell me car insurance or a warranty or whatever. So I really love that feature. There's another cool thing. It's a circle to search. My primary use for this is actually like pulling out text. So I've got YouTube here, and you can see that I just got it. It's very cool. I don't use it much for shopping, which is a lot of what the ads show, but I really enjoy that feature. It's very simple. They've had it for a long time, but they've just started marketing it. Some things that people really like on the Googles are inside of the photo gallery. There's photo editing tricks like unblurring faces or removing things or people from the scene. For me, I personally don't use those very often. I like taking pictures and just having them how they are. A lot of times what's in the background is just as interesting as what's in the foreground. So I don't use those very much personally, but a lot of people love them, so you might too. One thing worth noting is this is getting a little on in age, so there's only one more major year of OS updates that's promised, so that'll come in October when this will get Android 15, although, you know, we've seen with the Pixel 5 series that Google often gives more software support than they promise, so I'm hoping that's the case with this phone, because it's really pretty awesome. My only major complaint with the software, and this is for anything that's running kind of a vanilla Android, is the Monet coloring system. So that's what decides what these colors will be based on your background. What I would really love is a OLED mode. So I do have an app called Repainter, where if you have a rooted phone, you're able to enable an OLED mode. But, you know, I didn't want to root my phone this time because it's just a hassle to get everything working with bank apps, because you have to hide your root and do all sorts of stuff, and it's just a lot of setup that I didn't want to deal with. Usually I'm into it, but I have YouTube Premium now, and Google has this stupid thing where you can only have X number of devices added per year, and when you root a phone, it counts as a new device, and there's no way to clear those devices. So I lost downloading for like an entire year because I love tweaking with my stuff, and when I reached out to support, they said something to do with copyright, which makes no sense because every other streaming service allows you to manage your devices, but that's just besides the point. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the screen and speakers. So this phone has 120 hertz full HD OLED display. It's curved, obviously, as you can see, so a lot of people will like that, a lot of people won't. For me, I love the feel of it, and I love it when it's brand new, but now that I've had this for quite a while, the oil-phobic coating on my phone screen is wearing off, so you can see I've got a lot of fingerprints, and if I was able to put a screen protector on a little more easily, then I could just rip it off and get a new screen protector, and it'd feel like a new phone. That's my only main complaint about the screen being that way. Another minor complaint is it doesn't get crazy bright, but honestly, it's not too bad unless you're in direct sunlight, and I'm not in direct sunlight very often, so I don't worry too much about that. The speakers on this device are great. It's got dual speakers. It's got a big downward firing speaker and then a little hybrid earpiece speaker in the top here, and that works really well. It gets loud. Sometimes it'll sound a little rattly, but that just might be mine because I got it used on Facebook, so hard to say, but I've really liked the dual speaker setup here. The camera, this is what everybody loves about this phone. So it's got a 50 megapixel main camera, a 48 megapixel 4X camera, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. That's what's on the back. And then on the front, it's got an 11.1, which I don't know why they did a 0.1, but an 11.1 megapixel selfie camera, and that works pretty well. My unit has a tiny bit of, I don't know if it's like vapor or something in there, so every once in a while I look a little bit blurry. If you get this phone new or renewed in excellent condition, then you probably won't have an issue with it. Let's just get into some camera samples. I'm sure anyone who's watching this review has seen that many times, but I'll put my own in. let's talk a little bit about the battery. So this is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and it supports 23 watt fast charging. At least that's the rated spec. What I've seen from my 68 watt charger though is sometimes I get up to about 29 or 30. So I think they do underestimate the charging speed a little bit, but it still charges relatively slow in today's market. At least if you're looking globally. Here in the States, only Motorola and Oneplus really charge significantly faster, though the Samsungs are at like 45 watts or something, but you know, it's nothing insane. But I do wish this had faster charging. That's one thing that I really miss from my OnePlus. But the battery itself, even though it's pretty large, it's not great. As mentioned, this has Google's first Tensor chip, which runs pretty hot, and it just kind of chugs through battery sometimes. But I can still get mostly through a day, but I find myself topping up constantly. Just because that's how I use my phones. I don't like letting them get below 20%. But it's pretty decent. Definitely not the best phone battery I've had, but not the worst. But it's definitely closer to the worst than the best. That's really all there is to say about the battery, I think. So let's just talk a little bit about performance and gaming. This has the Tensor chip, as I've said like 3 or 4 times, and it was Google's first foray into designing their own silicone. It was a partnership with Samsung, so it's very similar to the Exynos chips, which means you get decent-ish performance, but a lot of heat and battery drain. And really, I just wish it was a Snapdragon. The chip for the GPU is the Mali G78, which works decently well. Pretty much anything I throw at it works well. I'm able to play Alien Isolation and it runs, but there is stuttering from time to time. I've also done some emulation and I was able to play GameCube games and PSP games with no problems. So overall, I think the performance is great. Again, my main issue is that it gets hot and it chugs through battery. One thing that I actually do quite a bit with every phone that I get is I put a little kickstand on the bottom. Typically I go caseless, but with Pixels I have to get a case because it gets so hot that the glue or the sticker on the back of my kickstand actually loses its stickiness and will fall off, even if I'm just like watching a YouTube video or something. So it gets noticeably hot. You will feel it in your hand, which sucks. I think if these had Qualcomm chips, they would probably be my favorite phones, bar none, but they do not, so time will tell. Maybe, I know Google with the Pixel 9, or maybe it's going to be the 10, they're planning to go away from Samsung, so Qualcomm manufacturing their chip might actually have some nice benefits. Overall, though, I think that this phone is an awesome deal. I'd highly recommend it for anyone who's looking for a good camera phone and doesn't mind having something that's a year or two old. Also, your worries might be that the software is going to be outdated if you buy it now, but there's a great developer community for XDA or on XDA for Pixel devices, so you can manually update these things. As long as you buy an unlocked one that supports OEM unlocking, you'll be able to keep this lively for years. And who knows, you might be able to get some kernel tweaks that allow the battery to last longer and the phone to not get as hot, while sacrificing just a little bit of performance. But overall, I love this phone. I'm probably going to keep using it. I did get a Pixel 8a, and I'm going to do a review here shortly on it. And that phone lasts longer, it runs better, the screen gets brighter, but I just love my 4X telephoto, and I really like this large screen with tiny little bezels. So overall, would recommend. I've got a link down below for this phone if you want to look at it, as well as some alternatives. Let me know if I missed anything or you want to know anything specific about this phone, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks. See ya.